Hi, and welcome to lesson 3. And this is where we really get into the super interesting and things that we can really kind of adjust and use and sort of the meat of all of this genetic information. So um, this is my favorite part. So since session 3, we are going to dive into nature versus nurture. We are going to look at epigenetics, what that term means, and why it's so very important, and what I do and how I help um, everybody basically kind of find what their superpower is. And then we're going to determine what is a genetic test and then what isn't it and what it won't tell us. Um, so, what is your gene story? Our bodies are always trying to win, so they will constantly fight to keep you in balance and find ways of keeping you functioning. Our body has many checks and balances in place and backup systems that can keep things in balance, especially when we're younger. The problem occurs when it just simply cannot do it anymore, and that is when symptoms and disease states will start to show. This is what I like to call your gene story. Your genes have been talking to you for years, and now, by looking at your individualized genetic makeup, they can talk to me too. And together we can develop a unique nutrition and lifestyle strategy. When you were younger, your genes may have been whispering to you, and you may not have heard them. You may have chosen to ignore them, or you may have made some innate changes that may have come from the whispers. And you may not even been aware that that was the reason you were making those lifestyle changes. But as you get older, your genes get louder. This is when your body begins to give you signals that you need to make a change. These signals could be aches, pains, or they may even be more pronounced, and you may begin to have symptoms related to diseases. The incredible part is, if we listen and know how to understand our genes, we can make those nutrition and lifestyle changes your body is asking for. It's as simple as that. Our genes have been talking to us all along. Now we just need to listen and understand what they are saying to us for our health, wellness, vitality, and longevity, basically keeping our bodies in balance. So, this balance is determined by both nature and nurture. Nature are your genetics, they're what your parents gave you. The rest is determined by your environment and lifestyle factors, which are things you can control. So, nature, again, these are your genetics, what your parents gave you, make up about 25 to 30% of our health and wellness. Our unique blueprint is inherited from our parents. Genes instruct the body on how to respond under certain environmental conditions. Genes can either be positively or negatively influenced by the environment. Genes do not diagnose a disease or a condition, but they do reveal clues as to how we react to our lifestyle and environment. So if genetics is only 25 to 30%, then 70 to 75% of our health and well-being is determined by environmental and lifestyle factors. These are everything from the stress that we have in our life, so that can be relationships, your social life, work, school, health, money. This can be actual stress that's happening, or perceived stress, or how you are seeing your environment around you. And if it's causing you to feel stress, then that is stress to your body. It's what we think about. We think about our past, our present, our future. It's what we eat and drink. It's the medications, the drugs, and the environmental exposures that we have. It's the air that we breathe. It's our lifestyle habits, our sleep, our activity, our enjoyment, our rest and relaxation, and it is also our spiritual beliefs. The nurture side of balance in our lifestyle and environment factors is essentially what is called epigenetics. Epigenetics is probably a new term for most of you, but basically, your genetic or DNA results are not your destiny. As I just said, they make up about 25 to 30% of your health. While you cannot change your DNA code, it doesn't mean you can't affect their genetic expression for the better. This is where the new evolving field of epigenetics comes in. Epigenetics is the study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. This makes up approximately 70 to 75% of your health and well-being. Again, epigenetic changes are fluid and do not change your DNA sequence. That is set in stone. But what they do is change how your body reads or reacts to your DNA. You can change how your genetic information is expressing, and epigenetic changes can either turn off or on, or turn up and down your genes. If you are making positive changes in your life, eating in a way that favors your genetics, living a lifestyle that favors your genetics, you will reap those rewards. However, the opposite is also true. If you're eating in a way that is not positive for your genetics, or living a lifestyle that goes against your genetics, this is where you will see health issues come to the surface. But the good news is, this is 100% in your control. So why would we want the ability to turn on or turn off or turn up or down certain genes? The easiest example of this is our inflammatory process. When we get cut or we get a bug bite, we want the inflammatory process to kick in immediately to bring blood flow and nutrients to the area. This is an acute inflammation or short-term inflammation. But what we don't want is for our body to get stuck in that inflammatory process. If it gets stuck there, then your body is inflamed all the time, and that damages your cells, your blood vessels, and your organs. Another good example is with COVID or with the flu. You want that immediate inflammatory process to start so your body attacks and eliminates the virus. However, what can happen is your body can get stuck in that inflammatory process. If you heard the term cytokine storm along with COVID, that is what it's referring to. Cytokines are part of the inflammatory process, but if they get out of control and don't know when to begin to turn off, then that is when you begin to see issues occur. The more chronic inflammation you have going on, the more at risk you are to have this inflammatory process get stuck when you're exposed to something like COVID or the flu. There are a lot of things that can cause inflammation: sugar, processed foods, consistent stress, or for some people, high-fat diets, metabolic disorders like diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and obesity itself can all cause inflammation. Some of us are more susceptible than others to have this process get stuck and cause disease in our body. We can look at our genes and see when this is something that you may be at risk for. And if we see that, we can start putting things in place to begin to turn down that inflammatory process or allow your body to turn off the inflammation after the acute or short-term threat is over. So what can a queen bee tell us about epigenetics? Honeybees are extremely interesting example of epigenetic changes that can occur. A hive of honeybees are all clones of each other. They're all clones of the queen. So they have identical genetic sequences, but the queen bee, male drones, and worker bees all have different roles in the hive. The queen bee can lay eggs and reproduce. Her job is to populate the colony. She is also much larger than worker and drone bees, and it is her job to determine which bees are workers and which are drones. She lasts up to 3 years in the hive. The drone bees live for a very short period of time, and they're basically just there as sperm to populate the colony with the queen. Worker bees are responsible for collecting nectar and pollen and making honey to feed the colony. So the difference between queens, drones, and worker bees is their very different roles in the hive, yet their DNA is all identical to one another. So what changes have happened that creates these differences? The changes are epigenetic. It's DNA methylation and modification that has turned off certain genes in these worker bees, turned off certain genes in the drones, but in the queen, all these genes are active. So how does this happen? What would cause the methylation and the modification to happen to cause these genes to be active in the queen bees and not the worker and drone bees? Well, during times of stress, the hive has or times when the hive has determined that they need another queen, The worker bees will start feeding a normal egg a substance called royal jelly. Royal jelly has many different compounds, but one of the compounds inhibits an enzyme which methylates DNA. So this royal jelly is being added to an egg during development, and it demethylates a whole subset of genes in the egg. And then the egg becomes a queen as the result. So this is a great example of epigenetics, of eating food or food changing the epigenetic signature during development and creating a queen bee. Remember, this is not genetics, as they have the same genetic sequencing when they're born. The difference is what they are fed. It is epigenetics. So my question to you is, what is your royal jelly? It isn't one single food or even one single nutrient for us as humans. We are far more complex. But I can help you find out which foods will support you to be the best that you can be both physically and mentally, and how to best support your vitality. So epigenetic changes affect how your genes work through nutrition and lifestyle changes. Exercise, activity, stress management, sleep, and nutrition all affect how your genes work. And the final piece of epigenetics is the environmental exposures we are confronted with. Toxins in the air, the products we use every day, and the toxins in the food we eat and drink all have an effect on how your genes are expressing. They can help them express either positively or in negative ways. And we can use all this info to determine what your personal royal jelly is, or what your personalized superpowers are. So what is genetic testing and what isn't it? Well, just a little quick dive into how DNA is collected. It is a one-time collection by a simple cheek swab to collect saliva or spitting in a tube. There's no blood draws that go on with collecting DNA, and it's collected once. Your genetics do not change, so it's not something like labs that you would have to get redone. Can genetic test results tell me what diet I should be on? So DNA or genetic testing tells you less about what type of diet, which I don't even like the term diet. I think it's more of a lifestyle changes that reshape how and what you eat. But genetic testing can help lay out personalized nutrition plan that is unique to you. Testing can tell us whether you should reduce or increase the fat in your diet, as well as which type of fat you should emphasize. Genetic testing can tell us if you are more sensitive to carbohydrates and if you would benefit from a reduction in concentrated forms of carbohydrates. It can tell us which types of fruits and vegetables you should focus on in your diet. And it can tell us a bit about your eating patterns, potentially explaining why you often feel hungry and cannot get full, or why you prefer sweet foods to savory ones, or why you don't like broccoli or Brussels sprouts. So genetic testing can save you time and money. Genetic testing paired with the right lab testing can definitely save a lot of time and money. No more random lab tests that come back normal, leaving you wondering why you still feel the way you do. So in summary from today, we kind of learned a little bit about what is your gene story and how I kind of use that information. A little bit about nature versus nurture, about epigenetics, which hopefully gives you a little glimpse into my world and how I use those nutrition and lifestyle and environmental recommendations to help you be the best you can be with your unique genetics and biochemistry. And we talk a little bit about what a genetic test is and what it's not. So in our fourth and final session, we will take a quick journey through a sample genetic report so you can get a feel of what that looks like and some of the things that I would go over with you with your genetic test. Discover how I use your genetic information to determine your superpowers. Mark it through how I use that information to create personalized nutrition and lifestyle recommendations to improve overall health and well-being. and get a glimpse into what you can expect to learn about yourself. So I'm looking forward to that. See you soon.